guys, this is Rhonda. Hey, I wanted to come to you tonight and give you just a quick rundown of some of the things that we consider dangers of the teachers' unions. This will give you an idea as to what all they are pushing into our schools. So these are the entities that we are dealing with: the National Education Association, American Federation of Teachers, Indiana State Teachers Association, which is the NEA affiliate, and they basically control the Indiana Department of Education. So here's some brief history on the teachers' unions. In 1854, Indiana State Teachers Association, ISTA, founded in Indianapolis. In 1857, the National Teachers Association, founded in Philadelphia, later changed its name to the National Education Association on August 15, 1870. In 1916, the American Federation of Teachers was founded in Chicago. In the 1970s, the NEA becomes a more liberal political organization. In 1972, ISTA and the NEA united. In 1976, the NEA endorsed Jimmy Carter for president. And in 1979, President Carter turned around and as a favor basically gave the unions the Department of Education. And then in 2000, the NEA and the AFT partnership was formed. In 2009, the NEA is involved in developing Common Core standards. And then in 2018, the NEA filed for the Red for Ed trademark. And then in 2019, the NEA kicked off the Red for Ed March. So how are the teachers' unions pushing the radical agenda? The NEA Representative Assembly business items include some of these things. The union dues pay for radical sexual ideologies, including sexual rights and LGBT ideology. They promote abortion, and they promote racial justice. And in 2019, Jennifer McCormick, the former IDOE secretary, recommended schools use the Human Rights Campaign Welcoming Schools items for teachers. And that memo came out the week after President Trump had his 2019 4th of July celebration in Washington, D.C. As he's celebrating the country and our liberties and our freedom with a spectacular event. The NEA was hosting their annual conference in Houston where they were bashing him. They were coming together trying to figure out how to basically remove him from office and how they were going to implement their radical agenda into the schools. A week later, Jennifer McCormick sends out this email to the schools recommending that they use the HRC's Welcoming Schools agenda for teachers. The NEA 2021 new business items, these were on their website. Their conference will take place again at the end of this month, into the 1st of July. And this is one of the items that's on there. The National Education Association, in coordination with national partners, NEA state and local affiliates, racial justice advocates, allies, and community activists shall build powerful education communities and continue our work together to eradicate institutional racism in our public school system. This again is on the agenda for this year's conference, and this tells you that they're going to further implement the critical race theory, basically is what that is. Business item number 5 to be voted on this year's conference states the NEA will develop educational materials for its state and local affiliates and members about the dangers of anti-transgender legislation. Current legislation is targeting transgender youth in sports and are restricting their access to gender-affirming health care. Materials developed will describe the current legal landscape at the federal and state level, provide model state legislative amendments to modify existing laws to prevent such discriminatory applications, provide talking points for advocacy, and link to existing resources for members and state affiliates to use in efforts to prevent the use of such laws as a license to discriminate. So this is very telling. If this passes at this conference in the end of the month, then they will be pushing for legislation going after the transgender agenda. And so anybody speaking out against that, they've obviously are coming after you. So the current NEA Handbook is something that we're going to share the link with you at the bottom of the video. You can click on it. We would suggest you read down through it. It's a pretty lengthy document, but it's very eye-opening. So we're going to highlight for the next few minutes some of the things that are in there. So under Social Justice and Constituency Committees, this one is the Ethnic Minority Affairs Committee. The Ethnic Minority Affairs Committee reviews existing bylaw 3-1, state plans for promising, sustainable, and measurable strategies and/or practices that support greater racial equity and inclusion and directly improve ethnic minority involvement and participation at all levels of the association to be shared with affiliates as they work to improve their plans. The committee researches, examines, and compiles promising strategies and/or practices, as well as partnerships that can be shared with and utilized by NEA affiliates, members, and staff to further advance the association's racial justice work. The committee also provides input to the Racial and Social Justice Conference Planning Committee and reviews testimonies from the EMAC hearings and organizes the broad themes that will inform and enhance NEA's strategic objectives. The Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity Committee says this: the Sexual Orientation Gender Identity Committee, SOGI, assists in the development of materials to be used for education for NEA members that LGBTQ issues and the rights and protections available to LGBTQ students and staff, specifically focusing on materials that can be used for real-time, two-way communication, video, and live streaming. The committee develops a list of medical, mental health providers, and advocacy groups NEA can vet and conduct outreach to in order to provide resources for educators, students, and families in the transitioning and coming out process of the LGBT community. The committee also provides input to the Racial and Social Justice Conference Planning Team and reviews testimonies from SOGI hearings and organizes the broad themes that will inform and enhance NEA's strategic objectives. So I think that's very clear what this committee is pushing into your schools. So the strategic objectives in the handbook state this: to grow and strengthen our union, we will organize our members around issues that impact teaching and learning and the lives of our students in partnership with our affiliates. NEA will increase educator voice, influence, and professional authority, recruit and engage new and early career educators, support professional excellence, and this was the key: advance racial justice in education. Support members in advancing racial justice in education and improving conditions for students, families, and communities through awareness, capacity building, partnership, and individual and collective action. And then secure a pro-public education environment and enhance organizational capacity. But I think the racial justice objective is very telling. So here's a few handbook resolutions. B13, racial diversity within student populations. B14 is about racism, sexism, sexual orientation, and gender identity discrimination. B30 is about educational programs in support of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, non-binary, and questioning students. B48 is in regards to school to work career education. B53 is about sex education, and we're talking about comprehensive sexuality education. They're very much promoting the full child is sexual from birth education. B66 deals with social emotional learning, which we've been dealing with a lot. B70, character education, also goes with social emotional learning. C8 is comprehensive school, health, social, and psychological programs and services. That's your mental health. So your unions, your teachers' unions, your radical unions are pushing the school health, social, and psychological mental health. Student sexual orientation and gender identity is C12, and I52, they're pushing the white supremacy culture, and I53 deals with racial justice. So I just pulled those out of their handbook, the resolutions. Those are the ones I wanted to highlight. There are many of them, and like I said, we will put the link in the video below so that you can click on it and you can read through them yourself. So we're going to talk about NEA new business items that were adopted in the 2019 NEA Representative Assembly. The first one we're going to talk about is inclusive language, which we're dealing with in a lot of the schools that are pushing the racial critical race theory. It's inclusive, right? Then white fragility. The next one is Black Lives Matter, Week of Action. Then we have Diversity Ambassadors Toolkit. They actually have a toolkit for those that are pushing diversity. The next one is Gender Sexuality Alliance Advisors. We've talked about the GSA clubs. That's what those are. So they have advisors that'll be putting those into the school. And then we have LGBTQ plus inclusive curricula. So that's what a lot of you are seeing, starting to see with the books in the libraries and the individual classrooms. So they're promoting that through the NEA Handbook. And they promote the Me Too movement and the right to choose, which is your abortion. And then they also push anti-racist, anti-biased, culturally competent professional development. So the teachers are all being trained and admin or whatever on being competent professional development based on anti-race, anti-bias. Okay. So those are some of the things that we wanted to highlight tonight, just in a short video. And we're going to, like I said, post a link that you can go and you can review the handbook and the business items and whatnot yourselves. So we will continue to bring you more information, but this is the short video we wanted to do on the teachers unions.